We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis in Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 33b. On the previous summer, there's a machlokas tanoim. Let's say a person says to 10 people, write a get and give it to my wife. The halacha is that in general, if you don't say kulchem, so then one person writes it and two people, they sign the get. And so the question is, can you be mevatel some of those individuals and say that they're no longer allowed to participate, not in front of the others? And this is all taking place after the general takon of Rebbe Gamliel that a husband is not allowed to be mevatel the get if it's done in bezdin, not in front of the wife or not in the presence of the shliach, let's say, who is carrying the get. And Rebbe says it's no problem. The person is able to be mevatel some of these individuals from participating, from writing the get. And Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says the person is not allowed, the husband is not allowed to be mevatel some of them unless it is in front of all of them. And the Gemara now explains what the machlokas is. Rebbe holds in general that edus shebatla miksasa lo batal akula. In general, if you have edus where some of it is batal, that doesn't mean the whole thing is batal. V'yazli hanach kasvi v'yahavi lechtuvu v'lisvu. So let's say you're mevatel some of the 10 people, and the other ones go ahead and they write it and give it. It's actually not a problem. Their edus is not batal, so there's no reason why you have to be mevatel in front of everyone. Rashi explains lo batal akula hilkach lo chash Rebbe Gamliel. Therefore, Rebbe Gamliel is not concerned about this case. Lahoshe bezin v'limnos al kach. He didn't set up a bezin and say whether or not this is allowed. Shein bazumim neitzikon olam, because it doesn't help us at all if we're going to say that it has to be done in front of everyone. Diazli hanach de lo batal kamayim, because let's say the other ones go ahead, the ones who it was not nullified. V'chas v'yahavila, and they go ahead, they weren't nullified, and they write it and give it to her. V'yazlo mitzvah, and she goes and she remarries. Shabraka mitzvah, everything is fine, and there's no reason why being mevatel, let's say Reuven and Shimon, has to be done in front of the other 8 individuals. The other 8 individuals are still able to write and give the get. However, Rebbe Shimon ben Gamliel holds edus shabat l'miksasa bat l'kula, that if you have an edus where part of it is batal, so you nullified some of these 10 individuals, they're actually all nullified. V'hanach lo yodi v'azli v'kasvi v'havi, and the other ones don't know that they've been nullified, and they go ahead and they write the get and they give the get. V'sharu eishes ish la'alma. Then what's going to happen is an eishes ish is going to be permitted to remarry when really she is not permitted to remarry. Rashi says, but l'kula v'afilu nishtayru shnayim sheidusan edus v'zel lo batal b'fneim batlu afein. The halacha is even if, let's say, 2 of them, they remain, and even if he wasn't mevatel in front of them, they are batal, and then it's going to be a problem. And the Gemara continues, v'yiboy same. If you want, I could say another answer to kuli alma edus shabat l'miksasa lo batal akula. Everybody agrees if you have an edus where part of it is batal, that doesn't mean the whole thing is batal. So really, there should not be a problem in this situation. V'hachayin v'taimed Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. But here, the reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is as follows: kasavar, because he holds milsa de misavda b'api asar. If something is done in front of 10 people, tzricha be'asar l'mishlafo. You need 10 people to undo it. Rashi says, v'yiboy same lo bat l'kula v'ein kan gezerah. There's no gezerah here. At the time of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, lo mishum takana. The reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel has nothing to do with the takana of Rebbe Gamliel. Ela kasavar in bitulo bitul achi avatel b'fnei kulan. It's just a general halacha that the nullification is not effective unless it's done in front of everyone. V'ayenu yachol dekamar lavi surah. When it says enu yachol, doesn't mean it's a prohibition. Mishum over al takana, that the person is transgressing on the takana. El hachi kamar, what it means is ein bo koach levatel ela b'fnei kulan. He's not able to be mevatel unless he does it in front of all of them. Again, if it's done in front of 10 people, it needs to be removed in front of 10 people. And the Gemara continues, they had the following question, Kulchem ma, what if you have a situation where he doesn't simply tell 10 people to write and give the get, but he says all of you, and the halach is, as Rashi says, Kulchem chasomu dekaimu landeinu get at sheyechsumu kulan. He says all of you have to sign it, and it's not going to be a good get unless all 10 individuals sign that get. So in that situation, what is going to be the halacha? Time of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that you are not allowed to be mevatel some is because mishum dekasavar edus shabat l'miksasa bat l'kula. It's because Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds that if part of them are batal, they're all batal. But if you didn't do it in front of everyone, you're going to have a problem. V'hani kevan damar lu kulchem. Now, in this case where you said kulchem, it's not going to be a problem because they all have to sign. Lo matzu kasvi v'yavi. The others, let's say you're mevatel 2 of them, not in front of the others can't go ahead and write the get because they're going to need everybody. Everybody needs to sign. The 2 people who were batal, who he was mevatel, certainly are not able to sign, and it won't be a problem. If the reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel was edus shabat l'miksasa bat l'kula, so in a case of kulchem, that's not going to be a problem. Odilmor, maybe time of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is mishum dekasavar kol milsa de misavda b'ape be'asara tzricha be'asara l'mishlava, that anything that's done in front of 10 people needs to be undone in front of 10 people. V'hilkach afilu kulchem namin. If that's the case, even by a case of kulchem, if he wants to be mevatel some of them, he's going to have to do it in front of all of them. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, come and hear a proof from the following Tosefta. Amar l'shnayim tenu get l'ishti, if he says to two individuals, give this get to my wife, yachol levatel zeh shelo b'fnei zeh divrei Rebbe. He is able to nullify one of them, not in front of the other, according to Rebbe. Shimon ben Gamliel, Amar Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, eino yachol levatel elo zeh b'fnei zeh. He's not able to be mevatel unless he does this one in front of the other one, meaning they both have to be present if he's going to do any kind of bittul. So here we have Rav Shimon ben Gamliel saying the same thing, but it's in a situation where he only told two individuals. And so the Gemara says, V'ashnayim dechi kulchem damu. Now Shnayim is exactly the same as 10 people where you say kulchem, because when you say kulchem to 10 people, they all have to sign, and when you have 2 people, they both have to sign. Upligi, and yet we still have the same machlokas tanoim, and that shows that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is concerned, even in a situation of kulchem, like a case of Shnayim over here. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is still concerned, and therefore we see that the real reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel has nothing to do with the fact that he's concerned that one will sign and won't realize that it's batel. That's never going to happen in this situation. The real issue is that if it's done in front of 2 people, it has to be undone in front of those very same 2 people. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi says, I be'edei ksiva hachanami. If this was talking about Edom who were writing the get, you actually would have a good proof, because it would be a case of kulchem. There would be no concern that one of them is going to do it without the other, and it must be that the real reason of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is that if it's in front of 2 people that it's done, it has to be undone in front of 2 people. But that's not the case over here. Hacha b'mayaskin, and here what is the case? Be'edei holacha. We're talking about the fact that he's appointing shluchim to deliver the get. Now it is possible for just one person to deliver a get, and so Rav Shimon ben Gamliel might have the same concern. If you're mevatel one of them, not in front of the other one, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds eidah shabbat l'miksasa bat l'kula, so really they've both been nullified. Now that other one who's not aware might end up delivering the get, and that will of course be improper, and so therefore that can be the explanation of this Tosefta. And the Gemara continues, Hachanami Mistaber, it makes sense to say that we're talking about Eidei Holoch in this case and not Eidei Ksiva. The Katani Seifa, because what does it say in the Seifa of this Tosefta? It says, Amar lo zeh b'fnei atzmo v'lo zeh b'fnei atzmo. Let's say he appoints them individually. He appoints this one independently and the other one independently. So in that case, even Rav Shimon ben Gamliel admits, Yachol levatel zeh shelo b'fnei zeh. Then he's able to be mevatel this one, not in front of the other one. And the Gemara says, Yamid b'shlama be'edei holacha shapir. If you say we're talking about edei holacha, then that makes sense. The idea over here is, since they weren't appointed together, so we don't say edus shabbat l'miksasa bat l'kula or shlichus shabbat l'miksasa bat l'kula, and therefore you're able to nullify one of them, the other one won't be nullified, and it won't pose any problems, and all of that can make sense. But if you say we're talking about Eidei Ksiva, Mimitzdarfi, so if you appointed them independently, they can't even join together to both sign the get. That's not even possible. Ha'amar Mar, because the master said, Einei dusan mitzdarefes at sheyiru shneim ke'echad, that you can't join together in Eidus unless both Edom see the same thing at the same time. So if you appointed them at different points in time, they wouldn't be able to sign. So it cannot be that we're talking about Eidei Ksiva. And to that the Gemara says, no, Dilma Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha svirule. Maybe Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel holds like Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha, who says that Eidos could join together even if they don't see the same thing at the same time. And Rashi explains, Yachol levatel, in a situation where he appointed them independently, he could be mevatel one not in front of the other. Ubatel zeh mitoras hashlichus, and the one he was mevatel is no longer a shliach. Shem gersha zeh eina megureshes. That person who he was mevatel, if he tries to divorce her, it's not a gerushin, he's not a shliach. Aval hasheni yachol legarish, but the second person can still be a shliach to divorce her. The kevan de mitchila lo bebasach hasav, since he didn't appoint them together, ein kan lomar shlichus shabbat lemiksasa bat lekula. There is no issue of shlichus shabbat lemiksasa bat lekula. V'yazal haidel lo yada b'bitulah. If the one who didn't know about the nullification goes ahead, v'yoyevla, and he gives it to her, shaper ko yoyevla, it's fine that he's giving it to her. So shaper ikolamemar amar lezeh b'fnei atzmo she'in ze edus sheyitztarchu liros olishmo edus tchila ke'echad. If we're talking about shlichus, then it makes sense that he could appoint them independently, because they don't need to see the same thing at the same time, because it's not a situation of testimony, it's a situation of shlichus. They're just delivering the get. Eloyamar edei chasima. But if you say that we're talking in this Tosefta about edei chasima, ha'edus gemura, but that's real testimony. Can they join together as Edom Kiyamar lazeh b'fnei atzmo v'lazeh b'fnei atzmo, if he says it to this one independently and the other one independently? At sheyiru shneim ke'echad as ha'edus, the halach is they both have to see the edus at the same time. And the Gemara says there is another opinion on that. Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha, it could be it's following Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha, the polagalo b'perek sheni d'chsubis of a Sanhedrin v'yamar afilu b'zeh achar zeh. Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha says that Edom can join together even if they see something b'zeh achar zeh, one after the other. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda says, Shamis minei de Rabbi Abba Tarti. I heard from Rabbi Abba two rulings. Chodok Rebbe v'chodok Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. One ruling was like Rebbe, and one ruling was like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Meaning to say, we had a machlokas Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel in two situations. First of all, if a husband goes ahead in Bezdin and tries to be mevatel the get, and that's not in front of the wife, and again, not in front of the shliach that he's sending with the get, so there was a machlokas after the takana of Rebbe Gamliel, where you're not supposed to do that. There's a machlokas whether the get actually is batel. And again, Rebbe said that the get is batel in such a situation, even though you violated Rebbe Gamliel's takana. And Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, no, you violated Rebbe Gamliel's takana, and therefore the get is not batel, because ma koach bezdin yafe. That was one machlokas between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. And the other machlokas between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel was, if a person says to a bunch of individuals to write and give a get to his wife, is he able to be mevatel one, not in front of the other? And again, Rebbe said he is able to be mevatel one and not in front of the other. And Shimon ben Gamliel said, no, you need everyone present in order to even be mevatel one. And so we know that Rabbi Abba ruled like in one of those cases like Rebbe, and in one of those cases like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. V'lo yadana, but I don't know Haika Rebbe, V'haika Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. In which case did he rule like Rebbe, and in which case did he rule like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel? Amar Rav Yosef says, Nichzi anon, let us see. Because when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he said there was an incident that Rebbe did like the Chachamim. Amar Lefanav Rebbe Prata ben Oshel, Rebbe Lazar ben Prata ben Menoshel, Rebbe Prata Agadol, and Rebbe Prata, the son of Rebbe Lazar ben Prata, the son of Rebbe Prata Agadol, he said to him, Im Kain ma koach bezin yafe. If that's what you're going to paskin, ma koach bezin yafe. V'chazer Rebbe v'asa Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. And then Rebbe went ahead and said instead to rule like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel and apply this idea of ma koach bezin yafe. And so therefore you see that Rebbe follows Rav Shimon ben Gamliel specifically in the situation of ma koach bezin yafe. Umidahak Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, from the fact that he follows Rav Shimon ben Gamliel in the argument about ma koach bezin yafe, meaning in terms of whether or not if a husband goes in front of a bezin and tries to be mevatel the get, there we follow Rav Shimon ben Gamliel of ma koach bezin yafe. So from the fact that he follows Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that the get is not batel in that case, so hach Rebbe. So we see that in the other case of being mevatel, let's say a bunch of individuals were appointed to write and give a get, in terms of whether you can be mevatel some not in front of the others, in that case he's going to follow Rebbe and say that you can be mevatel some not in front of the others. And Rashi explains, Shamis minei Rabbi Abba Tarti. I heard from Rabbi Abba two things. Kolomar Bahanach Tarti Plugsa, meaning in these two arguments, the Rebbe, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the arguments between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Bevitlo Mevutel, the first was, let's say the husband nullifies in front of Bezdin, is that batel or not? Again, Rebbe said it is batel, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel said it's not. Uviyochel levatel zeh shelo b'fnei zeh, whether you can be mevatel one shliach or one aid not in front of the others. Again, Rebbe said batel, and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel said not. Shamis minod Rabbi Abba de kaveh hilchasa b'tervayu chodek Rebbe v'chodek Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. So I heard that Rabbi Abba said the halacha, he ruled in both cases. In one case he ruled like Rebbe, and in one case he ruled like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. So Ma'asav Asa Rebbe b'chsubas b'perak almon and izonas kedivrei chachamim. There was an incident with Rebbe himself. That's the same Rebbe that argues with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. He initially paskin like the chachamim. Shayu omrim shum hadayonim shepichsu shasus or siru shasus mechron batel. That he said, let's say you have an evaluation made by the judges and it's less by a sixth or more by a sixth, then it's nullified. But then Rebbe retracted, meaning Rebbe even retracted his own opinion and went with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion of ma'koach bezin yafa. V'hechzer Rebbe as hamaisa alma. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel liyapos koach bezin. He ended up going with the sheet of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel to strengthen the koach of bezin. Alma beho halacha Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. You see that in regard to this halacha of ma koach bezin yafa, the halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and therefore you can assume in the other halacha whether you can be mevatel this one not in front of the other one. There the halacha would be like Rebbe. And the Gemara continues, V'yaf Rabbi Yoshia de Menusha savar chadek Rebbe v'chadek Rav Shimon Gamliel. Even Rabbi Yoshia from Musha, he held in one case like Rebbe, and in one case like Rav Shimon Gamliel. The Yamar Rabba bar bar Chana, because Rabba bar bar Chana said, Chamisha savi havin, and we were 5 elders. Kamid Rabbi Yoshia de Menusha, and we were in front of Rabbi Yoshia de Menusha. Also, Gavra Kamei v'ashkal gita al karche. There was an individual, a husband who came before him, and he forced him to accept the fact that he would have to write a get, meaning he got this individual, this husband, to say, Rotzani, I'm willing to write a get to give to my wife. So then Rabbi Yoshia de Menusha Amar Lon, he said to us, Zilu atmuru v'kasvula, go hide and write for her a get. And the idea is that the reason why we had to hide to write the get is because that way we wouldn't be in the presence of the husband, he wouldn't be able to nullify us in terms of writing the get. And the Gemara says, now if you think we hold like Rebbe, meaning that if he just goes in front of another bezin and nullifies, then that would nullify everything. So when they hide, what is that going to help? He'll just go somewhere else and be mevatel. Obviously, we hold like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, Ela Shma Minok, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Svirla. You see from there that he held, that Rav Yoshi the Menusha held like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, and therefore if the witnesses go and hide, so there's no way that the husband is able to nullify them. And the Gemara notes further, and if you think that in the other case also he follows Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, meaning in the case of being mevatel some Edom not in front of the others, he holds like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel that that's not effective. So lama luhu atzmuri, what's the point of hiding? Levadru avdure, another solution would be that they separate, that they all split up, because if you hold like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, you can't be mevatel some not in front of the others. So it must be that he held like Rebbe that you could be mevatel some not in front of the others. So splitting up is not going to be an option. The only option is going to be to hide. Rather, we see from this Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that in one case he holds like Rebbe, and in one case he holds like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Meaning again, in terms of whether you can be mevatel the get in bezdin, in regards to that, he holds like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. That is not possible. That's why hiding is a solution. But in terms of whether you can be mevatel some not in front of the others, you are able to be mevatel some not in front of the others, and that's why spreading out would not be a solution. Rav Amar Rav Nachman halacha kiRebbe b'shtein, and Rava says that Rav Nachman says the halacha is like Rebbe in both situations, meaning the bittul does work in both cases. And the Gemara says v'leslei Rav Nachman makoach bezin yafe, but does Rav Nachman not agree to the principle of makoach bezin yafe? If he holds like Rebbe, then he does not hold a makoach bezin yafe. V'amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, but didn't Rav Nachman say that Shmuel said? And Rashi explains the story of Rabbi Yoshia the Menusha va'ashkele gita al karcha. He forced the husband to give a get. He siu bal karcha legarish his ishto. He forced him to give a divorce. Kagon b'hanach damrin bu yotzi v'yitem ksuba, like the cases we have in Meseches Ksubas. V'yamar lu Rabbi Yoshia l'sadi, and then Rabbi Yoshia said to the witnesses, zilu itmoru la'achar shekafu at sheyom rotzani. After they forced him to say, I agree to give the get, he stiru atzvachem, hide yourselves, kadei shelo yavatel eschem ino edo, so that he can't be mevatel you from being edim. V'yisal kadaitach b'kamais hilchas Rebbe, and if you think that in the first case the halacha is like Rebbe, that he can just be mevatel them, not in front of them, in front of some bezdin, shem bitlo b'fnei shnayim acherim avutel, that if he's mevatel in front of two people, they're batel. So ki mitmri hani may have, if they hide, what's the difference? And then the Gemara said further that if he held in the other case, like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that he can't be mevatel some not in front of the others, so livderu ifdure, all they would have to do is separate, shelo yimtzim biyacha, that you can't find them together, ve'eno yachal levatel zeh shelo b'fnei zeh, then he won't be able to be mevatel one not in front of the other, and therefore it's obvious that separating doesn't help, because really we hold like Rebbe in that regard, that if he's mevatel one not in front of the other, the bittul is effective, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Dalid Amud Aleph.